Welcome to the Sheffield United Way. My name's Hal. We're going to talk about another players. As part of me, they can't actually wait until the transfer window slams. It does. It slams shut just because then we can focus on the players that we know are definitely ours. We're going to talk about 𝗤𝗍𝗄𝗃 Iroegbunam. Okay? Tim Iroegbunam. That's what I'm probably going to refer to him as, or maybe just Tim. A central midfielder, 22 years young. He'll be 23 in June 2026, if he's not careful. He's 6 foot, he's right-footed, an England youth international with Nigerian heritage, a product of the West Bromwich Albion and Aston Villa youth academies. Now, Iroegbunam played youth football in Sutton Coldfield for Sutton United, and this is interesting. Why am I telling you about this? Who cares? Well, he played alongside a certain name that I'm going to get to in just a moment. This was under 8 level, so it's a long time ago, but he played alongside future West Brom, Aston Villa, and Sheffield United player, lifelong friend, 𝗬𝗍𝗄𝗃. So Barry in the ear saying, hey, come here. Now, Tim, he is, as I mentioned, a central midfielder. He can also operate deeper, a more defensive midfielder. Some people call that a 6. Some people call it a 4. He can play in the 8. There was times when he was on loan at 𝗏𝗏𝗏 Rangers that he played even further forward. But the majority of his career, he has been just a central midfielder or playing further back as a defensive midfielder. In fact, if we look at the numbers, 63 career appearances as a central midfielder, 7 goals, 6 assists, 31 times starting games, further back in front of a back 3 or a back 4 as a defensive midfielder. So 31 times there. No goals when playing that deep and just the 1 assist. Now, in his career, including youth appearances, he's played 134 times, 7 goals and 7 assists, receiving 32 yellows and 1 red, which was actually 2 yellows. And that was in a Premier League 2 game. So it doesn't appear that he's an extremely dirty player. Now, he does have championship experience, and with some players that we've been talking about, that actually makes a refreshing change from a lot of the players we've been linked with and signed recently. Now, he spent the 22-23 season on loan from his then parent club Aston Villa at EFL Championship side Queen's Park Rangers, where he played in a midfield 3. And we're going to get more to that and some of his time at QPR a little bit later on. Ooh, what a tease. Now, he made his professional debut at Villa in February 2022 as a late substitute for 𝗤𝗏𝗄𝗃 Coutinho. I mean, that's a pretty big name to make your debut replacing, and that was in a 2-0 away victory over Brighton and Hove Albion. He signed a contract extension in March 2022, running up until 2027. But he wouldn't get to see all of that at Villa because he would be sold. On the 30th of April 2022, Tim was given his first Premier League start for Aston Villa in a 2-0 win over Norwich City. He played 73 minutes of that match. Then he was replaced by Douglas Luiz. He then signed for Everton in 2024, June of that year, for £9 million. Big money. If we look at just senior professional football and break it down by clubs, he's not played as much football as I'm sure he would have liked at this stage of his career. Queen's Park Rangers, when he was on loan, 32 games, 2 goals. Everton made 21 appearances, 2 assists, and just the 19 appearances for the Villains. Now, last season for Everton, he actually started only 5 league games, but in total was involved in 18, so sub as well. And that's 564 minutes in total, and he got 4 yellow cards in that time, plus 1 assist, and that was against the champions Liverpool. Now, in those 564 minutes, the stats make pretty encouraging reading in some key areas, but it is only a small sample size. 115 successful passes with a passing accuracy of 74.2%, and only slightly less with 66.7%. Let's call it 67% long ball accuracy. Dribbling success was at exactly 50%. And yet, time and time again, a lot of things I've read about him is that ability to drive forward with the ball, which, you know, I think we like to see, certainly from deeper lying players. It's risky, but when it works, it looks fantastic. And his style, his languid style, can sometimes look quite effortless. Now, he had a tackle 1 percentage of 48.3, won over half of his duels on the ground at just 52.6, so just over half, but more of a menace aerially, winning 73.3% of his aerial duels and recording a healthy 16 interceptions. Now, when I read about his time at Villa, one of the constant criticisms was how poor he was in actually winning aerial duels and the aerial side of his game, being as he is 6 foot. Sounds like he's got better at that with, again, small sample size from only those 500 or so minutes with Everton. The key stat that I took from SofaScore, well, tackles per game, 1.6, so close to 2. Possession won in the final third, 0.4, and balls recovered per game, 2.8. Now, perhaps more relevant, in fact, definitely more relevant, would be his championship stats. Now, this is according to FOTMob from his time at QPR, a successful time. Majority of Hoops fans rated him. He played sometimes as an 8 rather than just a defensive midfielder. He has been described during his time there as calm, but appearing at times nonchalant. He also played far more minutes than he did last season for Everton, so it gives us a better picture. Let's dive into the numbers. He played 2,284 minutes. He scored 2 goals. He had 39 shots, but just 11 of them were on target. He had 667 successful passes at 78.7%. One thing that keeps coming back is passing accuracy on the ground. Very, very good. Long ball accuracy, 55.4%. Those actually met their target. 18 chances created, 2 successful crosses, but his crossing accuracy just 25%. So I think it's fair to say not going to be relying on him to cross the ball. Dribble success, 46%. He had 1,303 touches, 49 touches in the opposition box, and he was dispossessed 26 times, but he won 41 fouls. He also won a penalty, but he did concede 2 penalties during his QPR time. I think most importantly, we come to the defensive side of the game. 67.7% of his tackles were won. Interestingly, that's exactly the same percentage as 𝗍𝗍 from last season. He was winning around about half of his duels. Aerial duels won just below half. Interceptions 25, and a huge 163 recoveries made. For example, 𝗍𝗍 had 151 last season, but Vinny also had 35 interceptions, so 10 more than Tim. He won 61.3% of his aerial duels too, 𝗍𝗍, and 58.5%, let's call it 59% of his ground duels, which was just 49% for Tim. So Vinny coming out a little stronger in some of those areas. Now, Tim's heat map at QPR was really interesting because it's almost all down the left-hand side. A lot of it in the middle, but he seemed to drift out onto the left. And perhaps that was simply because he was in a midfield 3, probably just more on the left-hand side of that and just moving over there. Tim has been compared on the website FBref as a similar type of player to Wilfred Ndidi. They will take that. So he's physically imposing, defensively strong, can take the ball forward well under pressure, protect it, can carry it. On the downside, he's definitely got the capacity for errors in his game. His short passing can be a bit loose. This is something I read from QPR fans. He sometimes loses the ball in poor areas when trying to dribble out, sometimes makes the wrong decision, maybe a lack of situational awareness. He's underwhelming in the air early in his career. Villa fans told me that. QPR stat that we just read there about the aerial duels won, lower than what we saw with Everton more recently. And for his size, probably needs to win more. Now, there is an interesting scouting report on Reddit all about Tim, which has some choice sections, starting off with probably the most important aspects of a defensive midfielder's game. The ability to cover space in front of the defence and give them enough protection. And apparently, he is in the right place to break up, to delay attacks by the opposition. Clearly has a good sense of where play is likely to progress, both for the under-21s with England. It became very obvious how often he'd win the ball back. A lot of the time, that kind of work can go unnoticed. Tackling, well, positionally, defensively, can he tackle? The scouting report that I read on Reddit said yes, but with some slight reservations. He has a tendency to go to ground a little bit too early and more than is liked, relying on his impressive physique and telescopic legs to outmuscle and dispossess opponents. He shows good aggression and bravery when challenging for the ball, but perhaps lacks a little finesse. So there we are. Aerial ability, again, it kept coming up with the scouting reports that given his height and strength, he's underwhelming in the air. But like I say, maybe that's got better. He is still a young player. Now, I'd also say from what I've seen, clips and matches, he has that athleticism. He has strong tackling, possesses that strong frame. ability to carry the ball forward, to drive forward, despite not getting many moments as an attacking midfielder, certainly not starting games as an attacking midfielder. A good first touch, long strides. Injury-wise, I've not been able to pick up much, but he did pick up one that I was able to find, and that was that he did have an ankle injury at the tail end of last year, which kept him out of action for 106 days. I hope that's the last we see of that. He needs to improve his consistency and maintain that high level of performance, which at times he has definitely shown, because there's a real player there. And the more defensive midfield cover Sheffield United can get, that can only be a good thing. 𝗤𝗏𝗏, he learned sign language as a child, as he was born to deaf adults and deaf parents, most crucially, those were the adults. And in 2022, he won the European Championship with England under-19s. He could represent Nigeria at senior level if he chooses to. But one thing to consider there would be African Cup of Nations implications. So, defensive midfielder, can drive the ball forward, can stride forward, sometimes described as nonchalant. What do we think about this one? And I'm just going to throw it, just going to pose it, just going to say it again. What areas, until we've got them all ticked off, what areas are Sheffield United still deficient in? As always, up the blades.